Were front and center again last night. About 100 people attended a debate put on by the Progressive Conservative Youth of Alberta. While the discussion touched on everything from health care to Jim Prentice's proposal of fixed terms for provincial politicians, the dominant theme ended up being trust and how to win that back from Albertans.
It's about the end of entitlements. It's the Accountability Act that I talked about today that we need to introduce as a new government. It involves the end of sweetheart contracts for political staffers, the end of sweetheart severance contracts.
Either you have integrity or you don't. It doesn't matter how you legislate it. If you don't know it intuitively, and if you don't know what is right or wrong, it doesn't matter what rules are in place.
This is about trust. This is about who's going to lead this province, and this is about who's going to change the channel on the bad things and who's going to keep supporting the good things.
The PC leadership vote takes place September 6th, and Global News will have full coverage. Another issue the candidates are being called on to weigh in on is the closure of Red Deer's Michener Centre. There are claims 5 former residents have died. The province is in the midst of closing the facility that houses severely disabled people. It's a move all 3 opposition parties are fighting to stop. Fletcher Kent has more.
Larry Esslinger has lived in the Michener Centre since he was 2, and his sister says he needs to stay there. Learning 5 former residents have died since being transferred has strengthened Diane Esslinger's resolve to keep Larry where he is.
People have died so far. Is that going to escalate? To how many?
She joined the Wild Rose Party's call for the province to stop moving residents out of the facility for developmentally disabled people.
They didn't need to be moved, and that the move itself was cruel, and it was cruel to the families. And so some of these residents died away from their families in communities that they didn't know.
They weren't the only ones making the plea. On this day, all 3 opposition parties said the same thing.
And we are calling for it to halt at this time, an investigation into these deaths to try to determine how much was related to the stress of change.
If it's determined that someone is in fragile and poor health in the first place, then the last thing you would want to do is transfer that individual.
No one leaves the Michener Centre until an appropriate home has been found for them.
The province wants to close the Michener in December and move residents into different facilities. The associate minister responsible says government will not halt those transfers. The 5 deaths are unrelated. Naresh Bardwaj says families have signed off on every transfer.
We're moving ahead with the transition because even though with all this political rhetoric, people are not saying that we don't want to move.
Esslinger begs to differ and vows to speak even louder for her brother and the 80 people still living at the Michener.
They're completely innocent victims in this game of political chess. I don't know what the government is thinking.
Fletcher Kent, Global News.
With Canada's growing seniors population, there is a call